All right, Steeler fans, it is time for the mailbag segment in the second half of this Wednesday Let's Ride podcast. Remember, if you want your question answered, it's easy. All you have to do is find me on Twitter at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT. Every Tuesday morning, I put out the tweet. You just put your question below that, and I will answer it live right here on the Wednesday podcast. Let's get this show on the road with Jeff Coons, our buddy from up north. He said, "Greetings from Not Mad, Canada. I'm going to submit this question before a tariff is applied." Funny. He said, "Do you agree with Roy Countryman's assessment that the Steelers pass on drafting a quarterback, re-sign Fields, build an offensive game plan, and add players to complement that skill set? Jalen Milroe could complement a Fields-led offense. However, I would hate to see the Steelers overdraft to get him in the early rounds. I agree with Roy's assessment that the D-line and wide receivers are the priorities, especially if they trade George Pickens." Thank you, Jeff. First and foremost, in case you're wondering, what is he talking about, this Roy Countryman? He was my guest on Monday's podcast. He was my Monday morning conversation, and Roy had his top 5 team needs, and quarterback was not on the list because, in his opinion, they just need to re-sign someone like Justin Fields and build around him. And then if you have to get a quarterback, you do it in 2026. And so I agree with that. I've said that for a long time. I don't want to see them. Let's say Jalen Milroe, since you brought him up, let's say he falls. Let's say he falls to round 3. Why would they, or let's say he falls to round 2 even. Why would the Steelers take him in the second round? Do they think that he is going to be the long-term answer, a quarterback for the Steelers? I feel like if you had a quarterback in place, maybe they've already signed Justin Fields at this time and you want a similar skill set, okay, I get it. But if you're not sold on Fields, and maybe that style of play, then what are we doing? I don't understand it. It just doesn't make much sense to me. So I don't want to see them draft a quarterback at all in this class. There's too many other team needs. When you think back to when they drafted Mason Rudolph in 2018, third round pick, there's a reason why Ben Roethlisberger was pissed. It wasn't that it was a quarterback. It was that they could have drafted another player in the third round that could have had an actual impact on the team and not as a backup quarterback. So I get that. I don't want to see him draft a quarterback. Not at all. Let's go to the next one. The Believers asked the Ride or Die Crew poll of the week. The Steelers starting quarterback for 2025 will be, the options are Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, and other. I chose Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson, especially with the Jerry Dulac report of he and Arthur Smith butting heads, Arthur Smith is going to be back. I could see Justin Fields being the guy. How much is it going to cost? Will they be outbid by someone else? I don't know. There's a lot of teams that need a quarterback. And so Justin Fields, if he signs before free agency, that means he wants to be in Pittsburgh. I think that's really important to note. If the Steelers offer him a contract, say a 3-year deal, however many millions of dollars, and he goes, I'll sign that. That means that he wants to be in Pittsburgh. He wants to play for Arthur Smith. He wants to play for Mike Tomlin. And that tells you something. And if he says, I want to hit the free market because I've never been at this point in my career, I don't know if I'll ever get here again, I need to get the most money I can. I don't blame him either. And that doesn't mean the Steelers didn't extend a deal. It just means that he's choosing to test the market. That's going to be interesting. We'll see how it plays out. Let's go to Plain and Simple, or Maddie. He said, "Howdy from Atlanta, Jeff. What do you see as a more reasonable 2025 roster, and which one do you see more success with making happen?" All right. First one, trade George Pickens and sign T. Higgins, draft a receiver round 1, then a running back in round 2, address the D-line and cornerback in free agency. The next option, keep George Pickens, sign or trade for a receiver other than Higgins, draft defensive line, cornerback early rounds, sign a running back in free agency like a Javonte Williams type, and go from there. Or do you have another option as well that you see more fit / likely to happen? He said, God bless, and here we go. So thank you very much, Maddie. Let's go with, what do I think is going to happen and what do I want to see happen? For me, I think the Steelers are going to keep George Pickens. And so I could see them keeping Pickens, sign or trade for a receiver other than T. Higgins, draft defensive line and cornerback in the early rounds to lock up the defense, and they need those positions, and then sign a running back in free agency. That is what I think will actually happen. What would I want to see happen? I would trade George Pickens. I don't need to sign T. Higgins to some monster deal. You can draft a receiver in round 1, trade or maybe even free agent, get a second tier type receiver, and then see what you can make do. I understand that people are going to say, well, you need another number 1, a wide receiver 1. I think they could find it. I understand why for me, T Higgins is like everyone's seen him. They know who he is. Cincinnati Bengals. They saw him twice a year. He dominated the Steelers at times. And I would be fine if he came to Pittsburgh. But at the same time, I just know how much it's going to cost. And you still have to sign a quarterback. You still got to figure out that. So I think they're going to keep Pickens and then go and sign a receiver and maybe trade for one. And then also draft one in the later rounds, possibly. But I think they're going to go defense in this draft. They tend to go offense, defense, offense, defense. This would be a defense heavy draft. Let's go to Will Caldwell. He says, in light of the last 11 years of first round picks, in 2026, the Steelers are still in quarterback purgatory. Should a top quarterback would drop to overall pick 3, and it took 30. I'm getting confused here with trying to read this. In 2026, the Steelers are still in quarterback purgatory. Should a top quarterback drop to the overall top 3, and it took 3 first round picks to move up from, say, pick 20, as a GM, would you make the move? I would. And I would for one reason. They absolutely need a quarterback. You can only get out of a quarterback purgatory by getting a quarterback. Will continues, in a similar vein, how much is too much a price to pay to go after your guy in cap space and or draft picks? So he even has an illustration or a picture here. The last, 10 years, I'm trying to think how many. Listen to these picks, first round picks. 2014, Ryan Shazier. Horrible ending to his career, but he was a good pick. 2015, Bud Dupree. He was a good pick. He stuck around. 2016, Artie Burns. Not so great. 2017, TJ Watt. He is great. 2018, Terrell Edmonds. No longer with the team. 2019, Devin Bush. Tore up his knee. Was never the same. 2020, they didn't have a first round pick. 2021, Najee Harris. Not great. 2022, Kenny Pickett. No. 2023, Broderick Jones. We'll see what he does on the left side. In 2024, Troy Fautanu. When you illustrate the first round picks that have been made, most of these were in Kevin Colbert's tenure, mind you. I would say you be aggressive. If you are sold on a player that could be the future quarterback of your franchise for the next 15 years, then you go and get that guy. You go and get that guy. Will continues, assuming this, for 2024, the Steelers free agent quarterback options are, I think he's talking about 2025. Fields, 2 years, $10 to $15 million annual value, or Wilson, 2 years, $25 to $30 million annual value. Or you could trade for Geno Smith, trade a 4th round pick, $44 million cap hit. Aaron Rodgers, no. He says 3rd round pick, $22.5 million cap hit. I'm going to stick by my guns. I'm going to say Justin Fields. I would just sign Justin Fields. You've seen what he can do. He could win you some games. He's athletic. You could build a system around him. I'm not going to be, I don't want Geno Smith or Aaron Rodgers, and I really don't want Russell Wilson either. So I'm going to stick by my guns. Let's go to Andrew Gallegos. I hope I said that correctly. He said, watching the podcast with Coach now, I'm assuming you're talking about my Monday morning conversation with Kevin Smith. How do you expect any change with Tomlin still in charge? Coach said it. Mike Tomlin has been around for 19 years. Why would he change when he thinks he's a success? Single reason why I'm down on this team since the 80s is Mike Tomlin is still here. We are mediocre. It's hard to disagree with you. I hate disagreeing, but I can't. Andrew. I can't disagree with that. So therefore, we're just going to move on because there really wasn't a question in there. Eric asked, love the show, Jeff. I know this question has been shuffled around Pittsburgh Sports Talk Radio, but in your opinion, who is more to blame for the Steelers, Mike Tomlin or Art Rooney II? I said this earlier in the show. I'll say it again. It's like two wings of the same bird. I don't want to say enable each other, but it certainly feels like they do. And so for me, I look at this and say, I think that Art Rooney wants Tomlin to do certain things and Tomlin wants Art Rooney to do certain things, and they just both continue this cycle. So I'm going to say both. I know that's a cop-out, but that's what I'm going to go with. Let's go to James. He asks a question, actually several. Jeff, with free agency on the horizon, what is a move that will surprise you in a good way? If they make a splash signing like a T. Higgins, that would surprise me. It's going to cost a lot of money to get that wide receiver. 2, a move that will frustrate you if they just do the status quo. And that is They make maybe an early signing for a player that's lesser known, i.e. Cameron Johnston last year. That was their first free agent signing. And then they just kind of get another player that they think fits the system. That would frustrate me. 3, a move that you're almost certain the Steelers make. I do think they sign one of the 2 quarterbacks. I'm almost certain that they will sign either Fields or Wilson. That's just what I believe, and I'm fairly certain one of those 2 is retained. He said, love the new site, by the way. Thank you, James. Make sure everyone goes checks out steelcurtainnetwork.com. It's a good-looking website now. All right, and then lastly, let's finish this up with Steeler Fan 69 with some dad jokes. He said, Rick Astley will let you borrow any movie from his collection of Pixar DVDs except one. He's never going to give you up. Next one. Why did the chicken go to the gym? To work on his pecs. And then lastly, my wife said, I was like fine wine. I asked why. She said, it is taking you years and years and years to mature. I feel like that is my wife speaking right there. So there you have it, folks. A good mailbag. I thank everyone for asking questions, for participating in the show. We're going to be here no matter what. If you guys want to take a break, I understand. But we're going to be here talking about the latest news about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And after the Super Bowl, it's only going to gear up from there. So make sure you check me out on Friday. I'm going to have Jeremy Jerome Betts on, as always, to talk about the All Bets Are Off segment and the Super Bowl. We'll get you all geared up for that. In the meantime, let me finish these up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. We'll see you on Friday. Go Steelers.